Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Solo Spooky Stories. My name is Rob, and today I'll be your host. It has been a minute since I've recorded one of these. Yeah, it's been nearly 2 months since I've recorded a solo story. We had our entire month of specials for spooky season, which was really fun to record. We had some great crack, just recording them, shooting the shit, trying something different. You know, having the special episode with the beer ladies and going on investigation, all that sort of stuff. It was great crack. We really enjoyed it. But as a result, we temporarily shelved the solo stories. So rest assured, they are not gone. We did get some messages from a few people asking if they were gone. People who really seem to prefer the short episodes to the longer ones, which I totally get, by the way. But yeah, there was some questions coming in asking if they were gone, and had we just not announced it. So no, I can rest assured they are here. They're here to stay for the foreseeable, or until we have another series of specials, and then they get shelved again for a while. So don't worry. Next time though, we will give notice when they're going on hiatus again. But yeah, just thanks anyway for the messages. It was nice to see how many people like them. So, you know, it was appreciated from both myself and Suze to see that there's some people out there that like the mix. But with that said, I hope you're all having a lovely day whenever it is. And we're going to get into a nice, just post-spooky season, little kind of scary story, nothing too mad. Something to just ease us into November and the steady sprint that we're now in towards the end of the year and Christmas. I can't believe I've just said that. But yeah, with that said, let's get into it. So today we are talking about an area in Ireland called Cave Hill, which is in Northern Ireland. It's near Belfast. It's actually beside the Belfast Waterworks, for anyone that is unfamiliar with it. And Cave Hill is this cool area that is actually quite historically active. I wasn't aware of this until I actually heard about what we're talking about today. I had no idea how active it was historically. And I'm ashamed to say that I didn't even hear about the case that we were talking about today. So this is a fun one for me to discover, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So Cave Hill, as I said, it's been fairly active throughout the centuries. It's got these great views of Belfast. It's right beside a lake. It's very idyllic, actually. Lovely, nice spot on a sunny day. And yeah, its history basically goes back to the Bronze Age and the late Neolithic. So it's been active from Neolithic period right through. So we're talking like a good, 5,000-7,000 years of active shenanigans going on in the area. So yeah, there's been ruins of ring forts, of burial mounds, all sorts of things. Allegedly, there's been some buried treasure there, which, of course there is. It is Ireland. We do love a good story about buried treasure. So there's treasure hidden somewhere in them there hills. And yeah, the O'Neill chieftains at the time apparently were quite active there. And even in kind of more modern times, the United Irishmen were also involved there. So it's been fairly active from, as I said, prehistory right through to the modern day. So pretty active area. But by kind of digging a little bit deeper, we uncover the story that we are talking about today. So we are starting in 1913 in an area in Cave Hill called the Devil's Punch Bowl, which is a phenomenal name for an area there. You have to love it. Like, it really sets the mood. In Ireland, we love a good kind of religious sort of name to something. Anything with the devil, you've got it. Like, there's the Devil's Armchair, there's the Devil's Mountain, there's, everything in between there as well. We love them. Good, healthy fare. And as I said, we're in 1913. The local Belfast police, the constabulary, started receiving messages from the locals and telegrams, calls, all sorts. It's 1913, you know how they got in touch. But the calls were all about someone in distress on Cave Hill. And the police took this quite seriously because the hillside that's there, it's quite like wooded and everything, but it is also quite a popular venue for people seeking kind of some fresh air and a bit of a nature sort of hike, but also somewhere that's close to the city. So, you can kind of get out of the city quite quickly and go for a hike. You can see it from the city, like it's very, very close. It was also allegedly a favorite spot for, as I saw described online, courting couples. So, you can read into that whatever way you want to. Teenagers, young couples going up into the hills where it's a bit quiet, or doing whatever it is they do. But the thing about this hill is that certain paths on the hill were actually quite steep. Apparently they were also like a bit of a rough walk and could lead to kind of like jagged sort of cliff tops. There was like scree on the path. Like, it was quite dangerous in certain areas for walking. So you kind of had to be a little bit more careful. You wouldn't exactly be going up in the dark or anything like that. And yeah, over the years, quite a few people had some pretty bad falls there, I believe. 1 or 2 people, I believe, also died there as a result of falls. So, it's pretty kind of serious place. You don't want to fuck about too much with it. But yes, as I said, police were receiving reports and they were all quite similar, which is something that, offers a layer of validity to it, that a man's voice could be heard wailing and crying in the deepest part of the forest near Belfast Castle. And some people were kind of getting really concerned about this. Like this man's voice sounded like he was in like serious distress, clearly, suffering, potentially in a lot of pain. They didn't know what was going on. And several people tried to locate the voice to help the person, to kind of see if he'd been injured or was in some sort of other distress. But as much as they searched, they just couldn't find this person. And where they would kind of go to where the crying was loudest, the noise would basically stop. So they didn't really know what was going on. Was it kind of like a trick of the hills? Like, was noise carrying, like sound carrying? Like, was he somewhere else in the hills? You know how sound works, and this is kind of like a hilly area. So, they were all quite confused and didn't really know what was going on. So they did the responsible thing, contacted the police. So the police took this quite seriously, and they pretty much immediately got out on their horses to do some searching. They went out by foot. They rallied the people, got out there and were looking. So they were up around the area. They were looking around the trees, the kind of the moors that were around there, and they could hear the wailing as well, but they couldn't find the person. And it wasn't for lack of trying. Like, they really did look around. So they had to call off the search. So then over the course of the following year, so we're coming 1913 into 1914, officers stationed in the area in the Chichester Road Barracks near the Antrim Road, they started receiving similar reports as well. So this was kind of throughout the year. It wasn't just at one point. It was like reasonably consistent that they were getting reports. And the reports were frequent enough, I suppose, but not too frequent, that they started thinking that this could be the work of some like prank, basically, someone that's basically fucking with them. And they were getting a right old laugh out of it, seeing the police and the soldiers scratching their heads, basically not knowing what the story was, which, is potentially quite an innocent prank, I suppose. But, then you also have to look at what resources are getting diverted to go look for this person up in the hills when someone else could actually be in trouble. So, you got to balance the two there. But yeah, anyway, they thought it could have been a prank and kind of wrote it off a little bit. I believe it got to a point where they were starting to kind of just ignore the calls coming in because they knew that it was the same person. So flash forward then to 1915. So this is in June, and a young couple are out walking in the Cave Hill area, and they approached the same wooded area that the noises had previously come from, and they weren't aware of the area. They weren't aware of the wailing coming from the area. As far as they were concerned, they were just out for a walk. So they're walking along, as couples do, just in 1915, doing, early 20th century couple things, when suddenly they spotted something hanging from a tree. So the man that was there, obviously, feeling like he was the man and had to do something, left his partner standing on the path, and he decided to go investigate. So he walked further into the woods to see what was going on, and as he got deeper into the woods towards the object that they saw hanging, as he got closer, he saw what appeared to be the figure of a man amongst the branches. And as he got closer again to see if the man was okay, he discovered that the man was actually hovering above the ground. So he did not know what was going on. And just as he started to panic and kind of realize what he was looking at, the man turned around slowly towards him. So not knowing what the fuck was going on and clearly in a state of panic, this dude noped the fuck out of there. He turned around, sprinted back to his girlfriend, grabbed her, and basically said, "We need to get out of here." And the two of them apparently hightailed it out of there, ran down the hill and got as far as they could from the area. When both of them emerged on the Antrim Road, they were apparently covered in scratches and bruises because they had been tumbling, falling, everything. They had, got out of there as quick as they could. They weren't being as careful, and they took some nasty blows along the way. But yeah, they emerged out by the Antrim Road and agreed that they were safe at this point. And that's when the man started to really process what he had seen. So naturally, people immediately were interested in this and wanted to know more about the sighting. And this became known then as the Cave Hill Ghost. People immediately from all around the area wanted to figure out what was going on here, particularly the locals. And they started to kind of put two and two together that this could actually be the wailing. Like, even then they were like, oh, you know, maybe it's been a ghost this entire time. So ghost hunters and people just, you know, obviously just looking for a thrill, decided to go to the hill in the hope of seeing this ghost. And at points, there were so many people on the hill that the police actually were forced to intervene and basically move the crowds away, because there were apparently people going up onto the hill at night trying to see the ghost. And, you know, as I said earlier, it was a steep hill. It was a bit dangerous to be up there. The police did not want to fuck about with this, so they were dispersing people. And basically, it just pissed them off more that, as far as they were concerned, this was like a prank that was happening and it was getting loads of public attention. So then, flashing forward 5 years, so we're now in 1920. The ghost hasn't been seen now for 5 years. People just, I assume, just forgot about it. So in September 1920, two teenage boys they had been out on Cave Hill for the day. They were out just doing shit that teenage boys do, probably doing stuff they shouldn't be. And they kind of lost track of time and ended up being on Cave Hill much longer than they had intended. So when they were starting to walk home, they were walking along and they thought that they saw someone in the trees. So they did not want to fuck about here. I'm assuming they knew what was going on. They knew the stories. You know, teenagers definitely would. They didn't want to walk into the forest and see what was going on. So they actually decided to make their way to Belfast Castle and they reported it to the caretaker there. So the caretaker clearly, you know, either just didn't want to deal with this or wanted to prove to them that they had nothing to worry about, or I don't know what it was. He decides to say, grand, thanks so much for telling me. I tell you what, you bring me along the path and show me where this guy was, because I don't know what's going on here. It could be someone that's trying to like steal from the castle. It could be a criminal. It could be anyone. It could be someone who needs help. So the caretaker walked with them. The boys eventually agreed. And as they got to the spot where they saw the figure standing in the woods, the caretaker, who at this point had brought a lamp with him, I'm imagining it's like old school style oil lamp. He apparently searched the area as it was getting dark and he couldn't find anyone. So he sent the boys off, kind of thinking of nothing of it. And on his way back to the castle, he allegedly, as he was walking back on his own, did see a man standing in the woods. So the caretaker, kind of getting a bit pissed off, I'd imagine at this point, like it's late, it's dark outside, he's not really in the mood. He decides to scare off this person in the woods and he decides to go full sprint towards the figure. So as he bounds up on this figure, it's too late. He basically realizes way too late that this man isn't actually standing there, but he is in fact floating about 2 feet off the ground. In absolute terror, the caretaker dropped his lamp on the ground and just fucking hoofed it back to the castle. He was having none of this. So when he got back there, he told a colleague that what he had seen, and basically neither of them decided that they were going to go out again that night because they did not want to encounter whatever it was that they'd seen. So then over the next few years, more encounters allegedly happened with this ghostly figure. People reported seeing this kind of dark clothed man standing in the woods, but when they approached, he disappeared before them. Dog walkers would talk about how their pets were growling or that they crouched in terror when they came near a certain area and they wouldn't go any further. The police just did not know what to do about this, and they searched the area again, no success whatsoever, and basically no one could explain what was going on. And you know, they were all just quite perplexed by this at this point. So finally then, going forward another 2 years, so we're now in 1922, two friends were walking together, John McAlevey and Frederick Orr. They were both from Belfast and they were walking on Cave Hill, so these are locals. And as they were walking down one of the old tracks towards one of the roads, they noticed an unusually smooth, round white rock. And as they approached it, they panicked because before them, basically, as I saw described online, written in the Belfast Telegraph, the man who noticed it first was the first there, and he fell back in horror, for from the centre of the tangle of briar grinned a human skull, the empty eye sockets bringing briar filled. So yeah, basically the skull was just lying in the earth and it had like thorns growing through it and everything through the eye sockets, which is pretty metal to be fair. And understandably, this dude freaked the fuck out because no one is expecting to see that. So rather than messing with what was going on, the pair decided that they were going to go straight to the police, and they informed the sergeant there of what they'd seen. So the police go, right, let's sort this out now, obviously taking it very seriously. And they went up, 3 police officers went up with spades. They closed off the area and basically started to like pull away all the brambles and thorns that were there. And after a bit of effort, they uncovered the full skeleton of a man. Interestingly, there were some remnants of a black coat with a velvet collar attached to his bones. There was also a pair of boots, and inside the pockets was this rusted penknife and part of a watch chain. He also had included on him a pocketbook and a wallet, and the wallet had these kind of like pulpy remains of paper money and a couple of coins. And beside the corpse, there was this old empty medicine bottle and a teacup. So a book on it, which is like an illustrated history of the area, says that the site in which the skeleton was discovered was the area in which all the previous sightings occurred, and the police were mystified as to how they'd never discovered it before. However, one theory for this was that it may not have been covered in a bramble. So what they're saying is that basically it was completely covered and the police just didn't notice it, or maybe, I don't know, they weren't looking hard enough, something like that. We will never know. But taking this as seriously as they did, the police realised what was on their hands. They informed the coroner, and the coroner came down and he decided that basically he didn't need to hold an inquest into what had happened to this man, and basically just ruled that he had killed himself. So the police decided to publish the details about all of this in the local newspapers in the hope that they might actually identify the guy. And the headline was Grim Cave Hill Find, Skeleton Bottle Cup, Tragedy of Years Past. Great headline. Absolutely love it. And basically this article goes into detail describing what they saw, the police officers arriving, the skeleton, how it was found, and what was around it. And basically they gave as much information as they possibly could, hoping that something might happen. So in April 1922, a woman, her name was Mrs. Scott, she arrived at the police barracks. And she basically recognized the description from the article describing the skeleton. And she said that these items all belonged to her husband. And she named him as James Scott. So James was originally from County Down, and he was a tailor. He apparently had moved to Belfast at some time and resided in one of the areas there and decided to start his own business. But she said that he had been allegedly missing for about 9 years. So the police basically took all this information and they decided, yeah, this is who it is. And they agreed that this was James Scott, the missing man, and they officially identified him as that. So with this, the remains were buried, and as soon as the remains were buried, allegedly there has been no further reports or sightings of whalings in the area. So from that day onwards, no one has seen anything. So yeah, I don't really know what to make of this one. Let me know what you think. I think it's really interesting that this figure just appears. He was first seen in 1913. Interestingly, 9 years later, in 1922, he's allegedly identified, and this man's wife said that he had been missing for 9 years. So, maybe there is something to it. I don't know. But I'd really love to hear what you think about this one. I love it. I love a good ghost story. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It's all very interesting. I think they're great crack. And having just come out of spooky season, the itch is still there. And you can let us know what you think. You can reach us on Instagram at the Spooky AF Pod. You can get us at Gmail at the Spooky AF Podcast at gmail.com. You can get us on Threads at the Spooky AF Pod. We're also on YouTube. You can get us there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. It's an interesting enough case with just enough coincidence that you could totally see how people make the connections here. But yeah, with that, I hope you are having a lovely day whenever it is that you're listening to this, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.